Hey folks, how y'all doing? We're going to talk about the second DBQ now, which is of course about Black African resistance to slavery. So let's have a look at it. Oh yeah, by the way, say goodbye to me. Bye. Hang on, gotta get rid of me. Bye. Okay. So once again, it's the same style of DBQ. Got 5 documents, um, 2 additional pieces of specific historical outside evidence, 2 documents, point of view, or purpose, or historical situation, or audience. Okay, so let's look at the question. Analyze the ways in which Black people sought their freedom in the Atlantic world from 1500 to 1800. Okay, so we got a couple different ways we could go at this. First off, we could do a comparison. How do they do it? They do it this way, or do they do it that way? We could also do a continuity and change over time, since you're talking about a time frame. So there's a couple of different ways you could go at this, depending on how the documents are laid out. So we're looking at freedom, Africans in the Atlantic world, 1500 to 1800. Okay, so let's look. We go, okay, we got 1500, 1800. Let's look at the timeline. What parts of the timeline are we going to be looking at? Well, 1500 to 1800. What regions of the timeline will be most important for this? Probably North America, South America, Central America, Africa, and Europe. I don't think any of South Asia, Central Asia, East Asia, or anything. So you're looking at the top half of the timeline between 1500 and 1800, which means that if you pull solely from the timelines in the book, you're looking at pages 619, pages 672, and page 783 to plug in. Okay, so that's where the material would be coming from if you're looking just from the timeline in the book. So that being said, let's have a look at the documents. Okay, document 1. Source Jane Elton Head, interestingly a woman, slaveholder and widow of a wealthy planter in the Maryland colony, official statement to a local court in 1656. Okay. Second document, Spanish governor and town council of Cartago, Costa Rica, Central America in 1676. Okay, so we haven't gotten back earlier than 1650 at this point. Source, Venture Smith, narrative life, adventures of Venture, native Africa, but resident of 60 years in the United States of America, 1750s to 1798. Jean-Baptiste Antoine de Verger, French officer of a sketch of American foot soldiers, and Toussaint Louverture, leader of the slave revolt in what is now Haiti in 1797. So on the timeline, we're looking at anything between about 1656 rather, and 1800. So at that point, we look back at the timeline, you'd be going from roughly right about here to there with these regions, okay? So let's go back and look at the documents. First one, I discharge Francis Payne, Negro, of all debts, claims, or demands whatsoever, and do this day acknowledge to have received from the said Francis Payne the sum and quantity of 3,800 pounds of tobacco. With this tobacco, I receive full payment of Francis Payne for the freedom of himself, his wife, and children. So here is an African, doesn't say whether he's born in Africa or born in the Americas, but he's purchasing himself and his family out of slavery for the cost of tobacco that he has produced. So how did he seek his freedom? He worked and purchased it. All right, so then we move on to our Spanish governor and town council. Having considered the various points of the petition from mulattoes, free-colored, and lower-class mestizos, remember in the Sociedad de las Castas, you have mulattoes and mestizos. They are mixed-race peoples. So you're looking at people who are free, who are mixed race and various sorts, who have overseen blah, 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 blah. Interest the crown, petitioners come together and settle so their lives might be overseen by regular justice. They might live in Christian discipline. Until today, they've all lived freely in the valleys and the mountains without justices being able to control them, which means basically many of these people would have been people who had escaped from slavery by fleeing into the mountains. Whether they had run away or whether they had revolted or whatever, they had gone away and hidden themselves. They're called in the Jamaican tradition Maroons, free people of color. And they petition, and basically they make a deal with the Spanish crown, according to this, that they have the right to settle and be ready with arms in hand as they are today. This implies that they're armed, that these